Hello, and welcome to today's presentation on Federal Milk Marketing Orders Classified Pricing. This webinar is part of a series which includes Federal Orders 101. If you are not familiar with the basics of the Federal Order system, we recommend viewing that webinar before listening to this one. To turn closed captioning on and off for this presentation, please click the CC button at the bottom of the video. What is a classified pricing system? Most basically, it is a system that determines the value of raw milk used in a dairy product based on the value the dairy product garnered in the marketplace. Each day, raw milk is manufactured into hundreds, if not thousands, of dairy products. So, how do we determine what a dairy product manufacturer should pay for the raw milk they used? In the Federal Milk Marketing Order system, dairy products are categorized into one of four classes. Each class of product has a different value in the market. Therefore, the price the dairy product manufacturers pay should reflect that market value. The Federal Order system uses price formulas that take the value of the dairy products sold in each class and works backwards to determine the value of raw milk in those products. The primary reason for using a classified pricing system is that it promotes raw milk equity among handlers. It ensures that handlers who are similar to each other in location and what dairy products they manufacture pay the same minimum classified price for the raw milk they used in those products. Therefore, handlers regulated on the FMMO system do not have to compete over the prices of raw milk. Essentially, they know their competitor is paying at least the same minimum price for raw milk used, and they can use their time and resources more efficiently to compete on other factors such as processing, transportation, or marketing costs, to name a few. Finally, classified milk encourages the movement of fluid milk from milk surplus areas, where there is lots of milk being produced at a lower milk value, into milk deficit areas, where there is too little milk being produced to serve the population, which results in a higher raw milk value in those areas. The use of classified pricing is a main function of Federal Milk Marketing Orders as authorized by the Agricultural Marketing Agreement Act of 1937, or AMAA. Classified pricing separates milk products into four different classes or categories. Class 1 is milk processed into beverage products, products you think of as either pouring over cereal or drinking from a glass. This includes whole, low-fat and skim milk, chocolate and other flavored milks, liquid buttermilk, and eggnog. Class 1 is typically the highest priced class because its high perishability and shorter shelf life result in higher supply and processing costs. Class 2 is milk that is manufactured into soft products like ice cream and other frozen dairy desserts, cottage cheese, yogurt, half and half, and creams, including sour cream, aerosol whipped cream, and standard whipping cream. Class 3 is milk that is manufactured into cream cheese and hard cheeses. Class 4 is milk that is manufactured into butter and dry milk products like non-fat dry milk. As you can see, raw milk is used to make a variety of different products, and they all have different shelf lives and product values in the store. The classified pricing system allows the Agricultural Marketing Service, or AMS, a division of USDA, to determine the minimum price a regulated handler must pay for raw milk, depending on which class of product the milk is used to make. How are prices determined? Classified prices are based on formulas which are set by regulation. To calculate a price of raw milk for each class, the formula considers three things: commodity prices, the cost of manufacturing, and product yields. We'll learn more about each of these in the following slides. Federal Milk Marketing Orders, or FMMOs, use what's called end product pricing to determine what handlers must pay for the raw milk they purchase from dairy farmers. Basically, AMS surveys the prices of commodity dairy products in the market and works backward to determine what the raw milk was worth. Marketing orders use 3 steps to determine classified prices. First, each week, the dairy product manufacturers report to AMS the prices and volume of sales for 4 commodities: cheddar cheese, dry whey, butter, and non-fat dry milk. Second, from these commodity prices, AMS uses component price formulas to compute prices of 4 main components that make up these commodities: protein, other solids, butterfat, and non-fat milk solids. These prices are called component prices. Third, AMS puts the component prices into classified price formulas and computes the minimum raw milk value of that particular class of milk. The result is the minimum classified price that the manufacturer of the dairy product must pay for the raw milk they used. Dairy manufacturers can pay prices higher than the minimum classified prices, but it is the minimum prices that are enforced by USDA. The table here shows the categorization of dairy commodity products and their corresponding milk components and class. For example, the main milk component in cheese is protein. AMS surveys cheddar prices to determine the value of protein, and then the protein value is used in the Class 3 price formula. Cheese is a Class 3 product, so handlers producing cheese must pay at least the minimum Class 3 price for the raw milk they used to make cheese. Let's break each step down a little more. As we mentioned, step 1 in determining price is collecting mandatory weekly survey prices for commodity wholesale cheddar cheese in 40-pound blocks and 500-pound barrels, butter, non-fat dry milk, and dry whey as part of the Dairy Product Mandatory Reporting Program, or DPMRP for short. The data are then verified by FMMO auditors. Entities producing 1 million pounds or more of these products per year are required to report their weekly sales information to AMS. These data are then analyzed and used to compute prices that are published in the National Dairy Product Sales Report, or NDPSR. These market-determined prices are used in formulas to ultimately calculate minimum classified prices paid by handlers for the raw milk they used. Federal orders establish and enforce minimum prices, and we want to emphasize the word minimum. Federal orders only regulate the minimum amount a handler must pay for milk in a particular class. As mentioned before, dairy manufacturers may, and often do, pay prices that are higher than the announced minimum prices. The federal order system ensures that at least the minimum classified price was paid. You may be wondering why these products are used to establish minimum classified prices. The government rulemaking process was used to adopt end product pricing in the federal orders. During the rulemaking, industry stakeholders provided evidence on what products, make allowances, and yield factors should be used. The evidence on the rulemaking record indicated the industry wanted products reflective of the prices for basic commodity products while excluding consumer-driven, value-added products like cheese slices. Based on the rulemaking record, USDA determined that wholesale dry whey, non-fat dry milk, cheese, and butter were basic commodity prices that were representative of their respective classes. Therefore, they would be good indicators of supply and demand in the market. Federal statute requires USDA to collect and release dairy product sales information for butter, cheddar cheese, dry whey, and non-fat dry milk no later than 3 p.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday of each week, unless affected by a federal holiday. The classified prices for each month are announced at 2 different times. First, the advanced prices are announced by the 23rd day of the preceding month. For example, June's advanced prices are announced on or before May 23rd. Advanced minimum prices are announced for Class 1, Class 1 Skim, Class 1 Butterfat, and Class 2 Skim. These prices are announced early so that fluid milk handlers know how much they are going to pay for their fluid milk that month. Since federal orders require fluid handlers to be regulated, knowing the price they will be required to pay for raw milk before the beginning of the month allows them to price their products to the customer accordingly. By the 5th day of the following month, the Class 2, Class 2 Butterfat, Class 3, Class 3 Skim, Class 3 Butterfat, Class 4, Class 4 Skim, and Class 4 Butterfat prices are announced. These prices for June are announced on or before July 5th. These are announced later because manufacturing handlers whose products are made with all of the classes and components of milk choose whether or not to participate in the federal order pool after the end of the month. Therefore, the prices they must pay for milk if they choose to be regulated are calculated after the month and reflect prices they received for products sold during the month. Here's an example of how AMS determines the monthly butter and non-fat dry milk commodity prices. From the handler survey, the weekly weighted prices and weekly sales are averaged together to find the weighted average price of each commodity for that month. Remember, the commodity prices of 40-pound cheddar blocks, 500-pound cheddar barrels, butter, non-fat dry milk, and dry whey are used in these calculations. Now let's take a look at what goes into the calculations. Step 1. AMS surveyed commodity prices and sales volume for butter and non-fat dry milk and published them in the weekly NDPSR. If you take the weighted average of the weekly prices and sales volumes for butter and non-fat dry milk respectively, you will find the weighted average prices for those two commodities. In this example, for June 2021, the monthly weighted average butter price was $1.7934 per pound, and the non-fat dry milk price was $1.2696 per pound. Step 2. Using commodity prices to find milk component prices. The formula at the top of the slide is the basic formula used to find prices for the primary milk components, that is, prices for butterfat, protein, non-fat milk solids, and other solids. For each commodity price found in the previous step, you subtract the appropriate make allowance from the corresponding commodity and multiply by the yield factor. The make allowance is the approximate cost to the plant to convert raw milk into 1 pound of dairy product. Generally speaking, the yield factor is the pounds of a dairy product that result from 100 pounds of milk or 1 pound of component. The make allowance and yield factor vary by class of product and are set in regulation. So, to find the component price for butterfat, you subtract the make allowance for butter from the commodity price of butter, then multiply that by the yield factor that represents the pounds of butter that can be made from 100 pounds of milk. So far, we've discussed how we survey and determine the commodity product values and then use those values to compute the value of the primary components in those products. The next step in the process is computing classified prices by using the component values we determined. This graphic enables you to follow the arrows through from the left to the right side to see the flow of commodity prices into component prices and then class prices. Let's follow through to find the Class 4 price. Butter and non-fat dry milk are both Class 4 products, so the butter price is used to find the butter fat price, which is the primary component of butter, and the non-fat dry milk price is used to find the non-fat solids price, which is the primary component of non-fat dry milk. The butterfat and non-fat solids prices both plug into the Class 4 price formula. Let's see this worked out with some numbers. Here is the template we will follow. As you can see, we start with the butter price to find the butter fat price. You subtract the make allowance of 17.15 cents, which is the manufacturing cost to produce 1 pound of butter, from the butter price. Then you multiply the resulting number by the yield factor, which is 1.211. This represents the pounds of butter that can be made from 1 pound of butter fat. The same step is done with the non-fat dry milk price. Take the non-fat dry milk price minus the make allowance for non-fat dry milk, which is 16.78 cents. That's the manufacturing cost to produce 1 pound of non-fat dry milk. Then multiply by the yield factor of 0.99 to find the non-fat solids price. Again, 0.99 is the fixed number that represents how many pounds of non-fat dry milk can be made from 1 pound of non-fat solids. Next, the non-fat solids price is multiplied by its yield factor, which is 9, to find the Class 4 skim milk price. 9 represents the pounds of non-fat solids found in 100 pounds of standard skim milk. Finally, the Class 4 skim price is multiplied by its yield factor of 0.965 and added to the butterfat price multiplied by its yield factor of 3.5 in order to find the Class 4 price. 0.965 means there are 96.5 pounds of skim in 100 pounds of milk, and 3.5 means there are 3.5 pounds of butterfat in 100 pounds of milk. Now you have the price of Class 4 milk for the month. Let's look at a real example. Here we can find the USDA announcement of class and component prices published on June 30th, 2021. This announcement gives us the commodity prices for butter and non-fat dry milk sales during the month of June. Next, we will use these prices to walk through the formula we just discussed. Plugging in the numbers we found earlier, the green June 2021 butter price and non-fat dry milk price, we can find the June Class 4 price by following these 4 steps. First, the $1.79.34 butter commodity price minus the 17.15 cents make allowance multiplied by the 1.211 yield factor results in a $1.96.4 butterfat price. Second, the $1.26.96 non-fat dry milk commodity price minus the 16.78 cents make allowance multiplied by the 0.99 yield results in a $1.09.08 non-fat solids component price. Now look at step 3. Using the non-fat solids component price we just calculated, we multiply it by the yield factor of 9 to find a 9.82 Class 4 skim milk price. Finally, this price is then multiplied by a yield factor of 0.965. The butterfat component price of 1.964 is multiplied by its yield factor of 3.5. The two are then added together to find the Class 4 price of $16.35 per hundredweight. This is the minimum a handler could pay for milk used in Class 4 products like butter and non-fat dry milk for the month of June 2021. Take some time to pause the video and try it yourself. Here's the price announcement from June 2021 again. If we check back to the previous slide, we can see the numbers match up with these. The green highlighted prices are the butter and non-fat dry milk commodity prices from the survey. The blue prices are the component prices for butterfat and non-fat solids found in steps 1 and 2 of the previous slide. And the yellow prices are the Class 4 skim and Class 4 prices found in steps 3 and 4. Class 1 is unique. The Class 1 skim milk price is calculated by the average of the advanced Class 3 and Class 4 skim prices plus 74 cents. Advanced prices are calculated the same as class prices we explained earlier. However, instead of using the average of the 4 weeks during the month like we did before, we use the average of the 2 weeks prior to the advanced price announcement. So, for June, we would use the average of the 2 weeks of May before the price was announced on May 23rd. To find the advanced base Class 1 price, we find the advanced butterfat price by taking the advanced butter price, subtracting the make allowance, and multiplying it by the yield. Step 3 is then to multiply the base Class 1 skim price times its yield factor to the advanced butterfat price times its yield factor as shown. The result is the base Class 1 price that applies to all regulated plants that produce Class 1 products. However, the actual Class 1 price plants pay varies by region. So let's talk about Class 1 differentials on the next slide. Class 1 prices vary by the plant's location. That's because, generally speaking, cows aren't typically where people are. In areas of the country with high population, there aren't enough cows locally to supply the fluid market. So the Class 1 price tends to be higher to reflect the higher cost of supplying that market and to offer a financial incentive to supply that market. Conversely, in the areas of the country where there are not a lot of people, but there are a lot of cows, the Class 1 price isn't as high because there is more than enough milk to supply the local market. As you can see from this map, each county in the continental US has an applicable Class 1 differential. To find the minimum Class 1 price a plant is required to pay, you add the applicable Class 1 differential for where the plant is located to the base Class 1 price computed on the previous slide. Here's an example of how the base Class 1 skim milk price is calculated. Looking at the June 2021 advanced prices announced during the end of May 2021, we see the advanced Class 3 and Class 4 milk pricing factors highlighted. They are $12.73 per hundredweight and $9.42 per hundredweight, respectively. Taking the average of those two prices, summing them together and dividing by 2, and adding 74 cents, we reach $11.82, which was the base skim price for Class 1 milk that month. The regulated Class 1 plant would then add its location-specific Class 1 differential to determine the minimum Class 1 price it is required to pay for the raw milk it used. Let's review what we've learned about market-based prices. The process begins when AMS collects weekly prices for commodity wholesale cheddar cheese, butter, non-fat dry milk, and dry whey. These commodity prices are then used to calculate the component prices of protein, butterfat, non-fat solids, and other solids. Component prices are then used in their respective price formula to find the minimum prices of Class 1 through 4 milk each month that regulated handlers and processors must pay for the milk they purchase from dairy farmers. And while Class 1 prices vary by the plant's location, Class 2, 3, and 4 are the same prices nationwide. So, no matter where the dairy product manufacturer is located, if they participate in the FMMO program, they pay the same respective classified price for the raw milk they used in their Class 2, 3, or 4 products. In the next webinar in this series, we will explain how the classified prices are used to determine the uniform prices paid to producers participating in the FMMO program. Thank you for participating in today's webinar. Here is a list of additional resources related to classified pricing and the federal milk marketing orders.